The first thing I noticed was the sound. Not silence, not waiting, but laughter. Loud overlapping voices, forks clinking against plates, glasses being refilled. I stepped into the dining room, still wearing the apron I'd put on at 6 that morning. My hands were damp from rinsing the roasting pan. The scent of rosemary, no, not rosemary, thyme, clung to my sleeves. And they were eating. Not just seated, not just chatting already into the meal. The candles were lit, napkins unfolded, wine half gone. Plates full. Adrian at the head of the table lifting his glass mid-toast, smiling like a politician in a re-election year. There she is, someone called, probably my daughter-in-law, but no one got up. No one paused. No one even scooted a chair aside. There was no chair. I stood frozen for a moment, letting the scene sink in. My roast was carved and passed already. The rolls I'd baked from scratch were nearly gone. My sweet potato casserole had that signature brown sugar crust, disturbed half-spooned out onto someone's plate. I'd been in the kitchen, finishing the gravy. No one thought to wait. Adrian raised his glass again, beaming. So grateful to be surrounded by family this year. Really feels like we've come full circle. Moments like that used to make me proud. Now they made me tired. I stepped further into the room, searching for a spare chair. None. Folding chairs had been set out for Adrian's in-laws, for his college friend, for his co-worker and his girlfriend. But not for me. I'll grab another from the garage, I mumbled. No, don't worry, Mom. I'm sure we can squeeze one in somewhere, Adrian said, then turned back to the conversation, already retelling his story about closing a big deal in Miami. I turned around before anyone could see my face. Back in the kitchen, I poured the gravy into the silver boat, my grandmother's, and stared at the swirl of brown. It took me 6 hours to get it just right. I carried it to the table and set it down with a firm clink. No one stopped talking. Not even a thank you. I walked back to the kitchen, hands empty now. For the first time all day, I sat down. Not at the table, just on the step stool near the pantry where no one could see me. My knees ached. So did something else. Something deeper. And that's when I knew I wasn't part of this meal. I was just the service behind it. The group text came in early November. Subject line, Christmas plans. Like it was a collaborative effort. Like we all had, equal say. Adrian's wife, Brielle, sent the first message. We're thinking Christmas dinner at our place this year. Everyone bring a dish. I waited a few minutes before typing. Would anyone want to try something different this year? Maybe go out to brunch. Give everyone a break from the cooking. The typing bubble popped up instantly, then disappeared. Finally, Brielle responded. But we love your holiday meals. You're just so good in the kitchen. No one else replied. The next message was Adrian's, sent an hour later. Brielle and I were hoping for your turkey. The cranberry relish sweet potato casserole stuffing, glazed carrots. Those little puff things with goat cheese. He listed out my entire usual menu. 10 dishes. Worded like a casual suggestion, but there was nothing casual about it. No one offered to bring anything else, just a string of assumed tradition. When I brought it up in person 2 weeks before Christmas, when Adrian came by to drop off something from Costco, I said it lightly. You know, I was thinking this year I might just sit back and enjoy. Maybe order in or let someone else take the lead. He didn't even pause. Mom, that's your thing. He grinned and reached for the package of smoked almonds he'd brought over. You live for this. I didn't answer right away. Just watched him open the tin, pop a handful into his mouth, and leave crumbs on my counter. Brielle's mom is doing the table setup, he added. You don't need to worry about anything else. Anything else. I spent the rest of that day writing out a grocery list, rereading the group text, then deleting what I'd written in reply 3 times. It didn't matter. They'd already decided. My role was locked in. 2 days later, a delivery arrived at my doorstep. A new roasting pan from Brielle. so you don't have to use your old one again. Can't wait, the note read. It was still in its packaging untouched when I pulled it off the shelf that Christmas morning. The kitchen smelled like cinnamon and ham, that morning the air thick with heat and timing. I was halfway through prepping the dinner rolls when I took a break and checked my phone. 30 notifications, all from Facebook. Adrian had posted an album, Family Christmas at Our New Home. The caption had that curated cheer his posts always carried, like a Hallmark commercial on loop. I tapped the first photo. Brielle was smiling in front of the fireplace holding a wine glass. Her parents sat beside her, perfectly posed on the cream-colored couch. The next image showed Adrian carving the turkey. My turkey. Steam curling in front of his grin. I recognized the dish towel on the counter behind him. It was mine. I swiped again. Adrian with Brielle. Adrian with Brielle's brother. Adrian with my father's old carving set. Then a group shot. Everyone gathered near the table, plates, stacked glasses raised. I leaned in, and there it was. My elbow, just my elbow, holding the tray of appetizers I'd spent the morning assembling. I wasn't in a single full frame. I scrolled further. Thanksgiving, same thing. Adrian tagged. Brielle's parents tagged. I was visible in one corner, half turned away, cleaning the sink. Easter. I'm in the reflection of the oven door holding a pot. 4th of July, someone else's backyard, my hands dishing out coleslaw. Always there, always working, never in it. I opened the photo app on my phone and flipped through my own pictures. Most were of food, tables, roasts, pies. Nothing of me. No one had thought to take a picture with me. No one had thought I needed to be remembered. Back in the kitchen, the new roasting pan gleamed from the stove. Unused last year. Brought out because Brielle had asked. I had said yes, like I always did. Like I was supposed to. I set my phone down and stirred the gravy. The house was quiet, then just me and the low hum of the fridge. I could hear Brielle upstairs laughing with her mother, Adrian, moving furniture around in the living room. I kept stirring. Not one of them had come in to check if I needed help. The clatter of silverware echoed louder than the conversation. I was standing just outside the kitchen doorway, not quite in the room, not quite out of it. My feet ached. My hands, still red from peeling and chopping since sunrise, trembled without warning. Adrian's voice cut through the noise. Mom? Can you grab more gravy? I didn't move. Brielle chimed in before I could answer. Yeah, Adrian's dad needs more too. It's so good, Mrs. D. Mrs. D, like I was a teacher, or the lady from church. Not the woman who'd carved the roast, who'd boiled cranberries down to a perfect tart sauce, who'd brought in the entire meal from scratch, while everyone else arrived with empty hands and clean shoes. I turned back toward the kitchen, the request echoing behind me. Reaching for the pot on the back burner, I realized the gravy had thickened too far. It was starting to burn, bottom layer sticking. I reached for the ladle too quickly. The spoon slipped, hit the edge of the pot, then bounced onto the floor with a loud metallic clang. The sound halted everything. I straightened up slowly, fingers still hot from the splash. I turned, saw them all watching. No, I said. Clear. Steady. Final. Adrian blinked like he didn't understand. What I said, no. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't need to. The silence had already wrapped around the room like a tablecloth yanked too fast. My husband would have noticed. He'd have seen the way I was holding my wrist, the strain in my shoulders. But he was gone. 7 years now. Adrian hadn't looked at me that way in a long time. Not really seen me. I walked back into the kitchen, ignoring the low buzz of resumed chatter. They were trying to pretend it hadn't happened, trying to stitch the moment back together. I poured myself a cup of coffee. Black, no sugar. The mug felt warm and solid in my hands. I sat at the small table by the window and listened as the voices picked up again. Laughter returned. Someone turned on music. They went on without me, and for the first time I let them. It came up casually over dessert. Aunt Liz placed her fork down and folded her napkin neatly, like she was finishing a business transaction. Oh, before I forget, I've decided to give Grandma's china cabinet to Adrian. It'll look beautiful in that dining room of theirs. I didn't say anything at first. I looked down at the sliver of pie on my plate, untouched. Adrian smiled, his usual easy charm. Wow, really? That's amazing, Aunt Liz. Thank you. I tried to swallow, but my throat tightened. That cabinet had stood in Grandma Ruth's house for 40 years. When I was little, she'd let me dust it, always warning me to be gentle with the glass. When she passed, Aunt Liz took it in, but everyone had assumed it would come to me next. At least I had. I cleared my throat. I thought I stopped. I didn't know how to finish the sentence without sounding petty. Aunt Liz smiled gently, like she was soothing a child. I just thought it made sense. Adrian's the one with the house now. Plenty of room to display it. My father nodded from across the table. And he's got the space. Plus, it's time that cabinet went to someone who'll carry on the tradition. He hosts now. My condo isn't large, but I have a dining area. A quiet one, lined with bookshelves and photos I've framed myself. No one had asked if the cabinet might fit there. Or if I wanted it. They assumed I wouldn't need it. Or worse, that I didn't deserve it. I looked at Adrian. He didn't meet my eyes. Just reached for his wine glass and took another sip, like it was nothing. I glanced over at Brielle. She smiled at me vaguely, her hand resting lightly on Adrian's wrist. She didn't know what that cabinet meant, but Adrian did. He knew exactly what it meant. I excused myself and brought a few empty plates back to the kitchen. When I opened the dishwasher, it was already full of dishes I had washed earlier that afternoon. I rinsed them anyway. Something to keep my hands busy. The laughter in the next room rolled on like I hadn't left the table hours ago. Dishes clinked, chairs scraped the floor. Someone turned up the music again. It was upbeat, something with bells, something meant to sound festive. I stood at the sink, hands deep in soapy water, methodically rinsing and scrubbing. No one offered to help. No one even poked their head in to see if I was still standing. I worked in silence, one plate at a time. Wine glasses, salad bowls, serving spoons. The roast sat untouched on the counter beside me, its heat long gone. No one had asked for seconds. They were too full of pie and conversation. When the last fork was placed on the drying rack, I turned off the faucet and dried my hands slowly. Then I walked out of the kitchen, down the hallway, and into the guest bedroom they'd set up for me, like a visitor in a home I used to own. I peeled off the apron, folded it once then again, and laid it neatly on the edge of the bed. My hands moved without hesitation. Opened the closet, pulled out the small duffel I'd packed for the week. I didn't need much. I didn't leave a note. No announcement. No explanation. I moved quietly down the stairs, coat slung over one arm, keys already in hand. The roast still sat on the counter, perfectly browned, glistening in the dim kitchen light. I didn't cover it. I didn't care if it dried out. The front door creaked slightly as it opened. No one noticed. Outside, the air smelled of pine needles and wood smoke from someone's chimney down the street. I slid behind the wheel, started the car, and pulled away from the curb without looking back. The motel I chose sat low and plain by the river, a 15-minute drive from the house. I'd passed it dozens of times, but never needed to stop until now. At the front desk, the clerk gave me a room key without asking questions. As I stepped into the room, my phone buzzed in my pocket. I didn't look. I just dropped it face down on the nightstand and sat on the edge of the bed, letting the silence fill in the spaces they never noticed I occupied. I woke up just after 6. Not to an alarm, not to a banging pot or a timer going off. Just the quiet shift of light through a cheap motel curtain, the kind of stillness I hadn't felt in years. The phone lit up before I even reached for it. 28 notifications. The family group chat, of course. Brielle, Corinne. Are you okay, Adrian, Mom? Where are you? We thought you were in your room. Brielle's mom. We assumed she went to bed early. Didn't even hear her leave, Adrian. Can you at least tell us where the ham is? Brielle. Should we call someone? I turned the phone over and let it face the table. The motel coffee was weak but hot. I carried the paper cup to the little concrete patio, out back, that overlooked the river. The current moved slow this time of year, just a ripple of water under a pale sky. I pulled my coat tighter and sat there with nothing but my own breath for company. My phone buzzed again. A call this time. Aunt Liz. I let it ring once. Twice. Then answered. I assume you've heard, she said flatly. I didn't respond. You broke Christmas, she added like it was a fact. I took a sip of coffee. It was already broken. There was a long silence on her end. Then, your mother's crying. She's cried less for me, I replied. She says you just disappeared. I did. She says you left the roast out. I did that too, she sighed. They're all panicked. I looked at the river. Are they panicked because I'm gone, or because no one knows how to reheat the potatoes? Another pause. You've made your point. I didn't say anything. I didn't need to. After we hung up, I muted the family chat. Not out of spite. Just for peace. I left the phone on the nightstand and walked the short path to the edge of the riverbank, breathing in the cold air like it owed me something. By noon, the buzzing had stopped. The silence wasn't empty anymore. It was mine. The cafe was halfway between my place and my parents'. Neutral territory. My mother chose the table tucked in the corner near the window. She waved me over with a tight smile and a peppermint mocha already waiting for me as if sugar could soften the conversation. Hi, sweetheart, she said, voice carefully upbeat. I brought something I thought might help. She reached into her oversized purse and pulled out the old leather photo album I hadn't seen in years. She flipped it open immediately, turning to a page near the front. This was Christmas at the lake house. Remember, Adrian was just starting college. I nodded once. My eyes landed on the photo. Adrian front and center, parents on either side beaming. I was in the corner, barely visible behind the punch bowl. I've been thinking, she went on, still paging through with delicate fingers. We've had so many wonderful holidays together. I know this year got off track, but you're part of the glue in this family, Corinne. You always have been. I let her finish. Then I reached into my own bag and placed a thin manila folder on the table between us. She paused. What's this? I opened it. Inside were printed screenshots, handwritten notes, dates, a simple list, 32 family events hosted at my house, 11 holiday dinners cooked entirely by me, 5 years since Adrian last called me on my birthday, 0 invitations where I wasn't also expected to cook. I slid 2 photos across the table, one from last Christmas where I'd been cropped out completely. The other showed me mid-motion clearing dishes while Adrian gave a toast. My mother stared at them, brows pulled together. I brought these, I said, because I want to be clear. I'm not doing this for attention or to punish anyone. I just need someone in this family to see it for what it is. She touched the edge of the photo. When I asked was the last time I was invited, not assigned. Her mouth opened, but nothing came out. For once, she didn't have a tidy answer. I let the silence do the rest. Then I reached for my coffee and sat back. She still hadn't spoken when I pulled out the Christmas reservation confirmation. The morning air was brisk but bright. I wrapped my scarf twice around my neck and walked slowly down the wooden pier, the boards creaking under my boots with each step. A few joggers passed me, nodding. No noise, no demands. Just wind gulls and the smell of salt and pine drifting from someone's porch wreath. This was the first Christmas I hadn't spent in a kitchen since I was 23. By noon, the condo was warm with the smell of cinnamon and coffee. The cornbread I'd baked that morning rested in a basket on the table, wrapped in a faded cloth my mother had given me years ago, back when she still remembered I liked simple things. Jessica and Nadine arrived first, both women from my church group. Nadine brought roasted carrots with thyme and honey. Jessica, a pie she swore was store-bought, but warmed with love. Aunt Liz came last, holding a small bouquet of carnations and a bottle of sparkling cider. "Don't worry," she said. Not a single dish in this bag came from Adrian's house. We sat around the table, mismatched chairs pulled from every corner of the condo. We passed plates, told stories. I laughed more in that hour than I had the entire year. It wasn't extravagant. It wasn't picture perfect. But it was mine. At one point, Jessica pulled out her phone. "We need a photo." I hesitated, instinctively reaching to tidy the table. Then I stopped. I took my seat again, right between Nadine and Aunt Liz. The flash went off. Later that night, I stared at the photo. I was in the center, relaxed, smiling, not holding a tray, not caught mid-motion, not halfway out of frame. Just me. Present. Whole. The messages from Adrian had slowed by then. The family chat had gone quiet. No one had called since the 23rd. I didn't mind. I didn't need updates on whether the turkey had burned or the napkins didn't match. I wasn't part of that performance anymore. After the dishes were cleared and the last cup of cider poured, Aunt Liz leaned in her voice, low. "You were right to leave, Corinne." I nodded, then walked to the window as the first snow began to fall. It was a Thursday afternoon in late January when I heard the knock. Slow, hesitant. I dried my hands on the kitchen towel and waited. It came again, just 2 taps, this time lighter. Through the peephole, I saw him, Adrian. I opened the door but didn't step aside. He looked smaller somehow. Hands jammed in the pockets of a coat, too thin for the weather. His hair was uncombed. He hadn't shaved. "Mom," he said quietly. "The house was too quiet without you." I held his gaze. "Now you know how I felt." Year after year. He looked down, then back up. "I didn't realize." "No," I interrupted. "You didn't want to." He opened his mouth, closed it again, then finally, "What would it take to fix this?" I considered the question, not out of cruelty, but because for once it deserved real thought. "An apology's a start," I said. "Not just for Christmas. For all of it." He nodded slowly. "Okay. I'm sorry." I didn't nod back. And I added, "You'll also need to learn how to cook." He blinked. "What? If you want to host, you need to know how to prepare a meal, not just assign one. And if you want to talk about family, you can start by feeding them yourself." He let out something between a laugh and a sigh. Fair enough. We stood there quiet. The cold air drifted between us. I didn't move to invite him in. "Take care, Adrian," I said, softly but clearly. His shoulders slumped. He nodded, once turned and walked back down the steps toward his car. I watched him go, then shut the door behind me. Inside the condo was warm. The kettle whistled on the stove. I poured myself a cup of coffee and sat by the window legs tucked beneath me, a small smile tugging at my mouth. I didn't feel triumphant. Just steady. I pulled the photo from Christmas off the corkboard near the fridge and looked at it again. Me, laughing, present, whole. I pinned it back up and took another sip. The silence wasn't sharp anymore. It finally felt like mine.